Hello and welcome. Nevada is a 6-issue series written by Steve Gerber and illustrated by Phil Winslade. It was published by Vertigo Comics in 1998. In 1997, while working for Marvel Comics, Steve Gerber wrote the series Howard the Duck. Due to being the writer and the editor, Gerber had a certain level of autonomy over what got printed. This creative freedom was obvious in issue number 16. In that issue, Gerber didn't know where to take the story next. So instead of writing a lousy, half-baked issue or allowing a filler story to be run, Gerber wrote a rambling text piece that was a conversation between himself and Howard. On one page, titled Obligatory Comic Book Fight Scene, there was a 2-page spread that depicted an ostrich, a Vegas dancer, and a lampshade having a fight. This creative but oddball page led to the creation of Nevada. According to Gerber, at some point in the early 90s, Neil Gaiman challenged him to actually write a story based on that absurd 2-page illustration. Gerber thought about it, wrote out some ideas, and then put it away, thinking there was no publisher that would be interested in such a weird story. Gerber also jokingly added that the original titles he came up with were Vera of Vegas and Viva of Vegas, and those were too difficult to pronounce, so he held off proposing the series until he had a better title. Move forward a few years, and Gerber pitched a darker version of the Inferior Five to Karen Berger for Vertigo Comics. Berger rejected that pitch and asked Gerber if there was an original story he'd rather work on. Gerber then told Berger about Nevada, and she accepted the project. So a silly scene from a filler issue of Howard the Duck from 1977 led to a 6-issue miniseries for Vertigo Comics in 1998. With that brief history lesson, it's no surprise this miniseries focuses on a Vegas dancer, Nevada, her companion ostrich, Bolero, and a man with a lava lamp for a head. Although, there is no obligatory fight scene between the three of them. In describing the series in 1997, Gerber said, quote, "As a series, Nevada has a great deal in common with Man-Thing and Howard the Duck, in that it's impossible to categorize. It's a crime story, a horror story, a slice of life, and a cosmic saga all at once." Unquote. If you're new and you like what you see, please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. If you want to go a step further and directly support this channel, there's a link to my Patreon in the description. The story opens on a series of bizarre murders that happen in a Vegas hotel. Random guests are cut up and their body parts are found in different locations. This then cuts to establishing Nevada and Bolero, who seem to have an odd bond. In fact, they perform together. It's one of the many peculiarities that happen in the series. Overall, it's about Nevada becoming the latest incarnation of a Rift Warrior. This is a being that prevents other dimensional beings from invading Earth. While distinct on her own, Nevada is very reminiscent of the aforementioned Howard the Duck. She has a way of internalizing the strangeness that happens around her and seems to accept that her life is just a series of bizarre events strung together. There's a suggestion that her past is rather unusual, but we never get a glimpse at what that might entail. Another notable character is Ogden Locke, the obligatory Gerber character who seems out of touch with reality, but is actually the key to explaining all that is happening. Ogden is the current Rift Warrior, who remains permanently drunk to numb his connection to Earth so he can do battle in other dimensions. Unfortunately, he runs into trouble with the Lava Head Man and is unable to provide any guidance to Nevada. In a nutshell, Nevada is a spiritual quest with a reluctant protagonist who doesn't immediately understand what's going on. And then, when she is given an understanding of life, the universe, and everything, she leans into the weirdness and accepts it. It's a weird origin story that ends with a pile of dangling subplots, all of which were intended to be picked up in a follow-up miniseries that never came to be. In fact, in the final issue, Gerber announced another miniseries was in the works. And in the one-shot Winter's Edge number 2, the next series is announced again. However, for whatever reason, the series never continued. As a brief side note, Leonard the Duck appears in one panel in this Winter's Edge story. For those familiar with the Howard the Duck saga, Leonard is actually Howard, who Gerber swiped from Marvel in a crossover with Image from 1996. It's a whole convoluted thing that I covered in the Howard the Duck video. If I'm not wrong, this may be the one and only appearance of Howard as Leonard, not to mention Beverly Switzler as Rhonda Martini, outside of that 1996 crossover. End of side note. Considering the material Gerber seemed interested in writing, it's unusual that he didn't do a lot of work for Vertigo. It was an imprint that was ideal for his style of storytelling, and quite possibly a good place for him to explore some of his more abstract spiritual ideas. Furthermore, in an interview from September 1998, Gerber stated, quote, "I feel as if I'm finally being allowed to communicate with adults in some language other than baby talk," unquote. So again, Vertigo seemed like a perfect place for Gerber to work, but for whatever reason, he did nothing further for the imprint, which again seems odd, because much more was planned for Nevada beyond this one miniseries. In fact, it was intended to be a series of miniseries with breaks between story arcs, yet all that exists is the one miniseries. Why didn't he do more? One can only speculate. It's likely a mix of scheduling, interest, and health issues on Gerber's part. After all, in his final decade, he seemed to limit himself to one miniseries a year. So it's likely Gerber had other work scheduled, as did the artist, and their schedules didn't align for another Nevada project. And when they did align, in 2002, they did Howard the Duck instead. Understandably, if given a choice, one can hardly fault Gerber for taking the opportunity to work on Howard one final time. In the end, is Nevada a worthwhile dollar bin purchase? Most certainly, if you enjoy Gerber's work. For everyone else, it's not bad. It wouldn't be the first work of Gerber's I would suggest. It's charming and light-hearted, with a lot of weirdness that might take a few reads to fully grasp. And if we're being honest, it's another take on a theme Gerber returned to time and again, most notably in Void Indigo and Hard Time. Nevada, like the other two examples, is Gerber's spiritual, eternal warrior. Random people are chosen by an eternal spirit to fight the good fight and be the avatar of justice, so to speak. So there are 3 examples from 3 different decades where he tried to explore the same theme with radically different characters. Nevada isn't his best work from the 90s. That distinction goes to Fool Killer, but Nevada is reasonably good and entertaining, if not slightly disappointing that further adventures were not produced. All that's left to say is thank you for watching, or listening, whatever the case may be. Thanks to all my fine supporters on Patreon and on YouTube. If you have the ways and means, please help out. I'm about a third of the way to my overall goal of being able to do this full time, so any and all support is greatly appreciated. Extra special thanks to Phil Sagan, Edward Clayton Andrews, Corey Drew, Alexa Zernish, Brian Deaton, Johnny Lim, Steve White, Taylor Dull, and Matt Marino. You are all justified and ancient. Hey, look, a playlist. Why not watch some other videos? Until next time.